All right, running a little bit late on a Friday, but if we're going to roll into the weekend with anybody, it's going to be the people's favorite guest, Doug Kyed of the Herald, back with me. I didn't do this on purpose for the folks at YouTube, but Doug can confirm I am dressed like him today.
It's
I
true.
have a crew neck sweatshirt. It's a great look. The
Yep.
black beanie goes well with my black glasses, not as well as with the gray beard, and the sweatshirt, because everyone's asking right off the top of a Patriots podcast, says uncle on it, because I met my niece, my first niece, today. Very exciting after almost a 3-week stay in the hospital amid some other family stuff going on. But I'm going to rock this even with a stain. Thank you to my niece for that, for as long as I can. Now,
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, you've been great through all this. It's been a lot of wait and see, different news, updates, and glad mom, dad, and baby are now finally at home and safe. So we have a lot to catch up on. We're going to do more Belichick, North Carolina talk off the top. I spent a lot of time with Mutt in our last episode trying to advance a story, not knowing at that time, Tuesday, whether Bill was going to get the job or not. Yeah. We're going to put a bow on that. What's at stake for the Patriots? We got 4 games left. These are more important than you might think. Will they win a game? Predictions from Doug and myself, and then we'll finally dig into Pat's Cardinals on Sunday. Patriots are 6.5-point underdogs in Arizona. Feels about right. But okay, so Belichick is at North Carolina. He's officially got a 5-year deal. Unofficially, it's really 3 years when you consider the guarantees. $10 million per year. Michael Lombardi's the GM. North Carolina quintupled their NIL budget from a year ago. $4 million up to $20 million for Bill, which is my big sticking point and reason for doubt. They come through. He gets the deal he wants. Your reaction after a day or two is what?
I think my number one reaction is questioning how long he's actually going to be there. I know he said yesterday in the press conference, I didn't come here to leave. But the buyout's $10 million only up until June, at which point it drops down to $1 million. And I mean, other buyouts in college football are like $60 million, $70 million, $50. Like, this is a pretty low buyout for Bill Belichick and UNC, especially when it drops down to that 1 million mark in June. So I don't know. Part of me just still does think that, like, he didn't want to go through another hiring cycle and not want to get hired. Obviously, didn't want to do media for another year, wanted to get back into coaching. And it feels like this is a good way for him to have a job, potentially see this as a long-term opportunity, but also makes it a little bit less uncomfortable if he does still have some interest in coaching in the NFL. And let's say like next year or something, an opportunity comes along, the Eagles, whatever it is. And then, like, if he gets it, he gets it. But if he doesn't, he still has a job at UNC. And I think that that's a better way for him to go about this than to just keep doing media until an NFL job falls into his lap, because he does love coaching. He does want to coach. I just do question a little bit, like, these guys who are going to be coming to staff with him and everything like that. How long are these guys actually going to be in North Carolina? How long is he going to be in North Carolina? Like you said, it's a 5-year deal, but really more like a 3-year deal. The buyout's so low. I don't know. I know that everyone's saying, like, all right, Don Shula's record is intact. The next guy who can break it is Andy Reid. I'm not totally ready to throw out the possibility that Bill Belichick returns to the NFL.
Backtracking. We have another 4-minute drill, by the way. This is unrelated from Bill. Yannick Ngakoue came on. He's at the end of this. That's going to follow. I should have said it at the top. Fast forwarding back, I think you're absolutely right. I'm also curious, like, $10 million is a lot of money. I don't care who you are. But the people that might pay $10 million to get their dream job, especially at 72, Bill Belichick is on that list, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it wouldn't be, it would be like if the Cowboys hired him, it would be like Jerry Jones paying $10 million. And, like, if he really wants Bill Belichick, then, but
we know he doesn't have any confidence from the reporting afterward, or just the fact that he took this job and went through a week of interviews or conversations, discussions, whatever you want to call them, that he will get an NFL job, which also, if the calendar was reversed, he'd be able to find out, right? If the NFL hired in November, as college does, he could go through that process. Okay, it doesn't work out. Here's my plan B. Instead, he's jumping to plan B, which he can't control the calendar. But that was my immediate take when I think that stood the test of time in the ensuing reporting.
Well, also, I mean, I know that he's not supposed to, but I think at this point, he's got a pretty good idea that, like, if he's taking this job, that he's probably not going to get hired by any job that's currently available or one that might become available. Because like the Giants job, I have no idea what's going to happen with Brian Daboll. I have no idea what the Giants are going to do. I know that they've said that Brian Daboll is safe and will be back. They have 2 wins right now. So I'm not certainly setting that in stone, but like, I think his relationship with John Mara is pretty good. So if anyone would know that situation, it would probably be Bill. I mean, remember, he knew that Brian Daboll was going to be the head coach of the Giants before anyone else did. That's been well established now at this point. So I think that he would also have a pretty good idea of if that job would come available and if the Giants would be interested more than anyone else. And I mean, the same thing goes with like the Cowboys. We know that he's got a good relationship with Jerry Jones at this point. And I mean, would owners want to reach out to Bill with a head coach still in place? Not ideally, but at least they're not having to tamper by talking to Bill. And at least, like, so I think that that's what we know is that like Bill's got to have a pretty good idea that it's not going to happen this year. That's why he's taking this UNC job. But if something comes along next year, it's only $1 million buyout.
It is. I want to hit a couple more things and then we'll move on to Patriots talk. Number one, I don't believe in the fit. This is not because I don't believe in Bill Belichick as a football coach. Repeatedly call him the greatest of all time. A lot of this has to do with age, as much as college football has changed and the landscape has shifted, where he sees an opening as opposed to a brick wall or a reason to U-turn. It's not still changed that much. We will find out, though, in this, I would say, next month or two, how much equity he's got from the NFL and translates to college, right? Like I hit on with Mutt the last time he won a Super Bowl. The top high school recruits in the country were 10 and 11 years old. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
But in the transfer portal, that's where he's going to make his money by handing out money in the first place and also getting better players that take less projection, which you and I know and have discussed was his biggest issue down the stretch here in New England, projecting college players to the NFL. And there's a small window where he'll be able to recruit on his reputation, which again, greatest ever. That counts. But as soon as you start coaching, everything's out in the open. Okay. And you are still in college or the NFL only as good as your talent, which was his problem here in New England and could be in North Carolina. So I think he needs a fast start more than people are giving this credit for. Yes, they're in the business of developing players, but not only just because he's going to be 73 in April, but the way that they position themselves to start fast, totally remake the roster. If you can't persuade kids now, A, your team probably isn't that good come September. And then B, what's the selling point after that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's like you said, if he has a bad first year, then this could go downhill pretty quickly. I do think that out of any, coach, he's done a great job, especially defensively, of putting guys in the best place to succeed. Also, maybe not necessarily having like the most elite talent, but still getting elite production and efficiency out of units. So like, I believe in his coaching, but someone made a point recently where like these players were not born during Bill Belichick's first dynasty era. And like, how old were these players even in like 2018 at this point? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. 10 and 11.
Yeah.
If you're a top high school recruit, and by the way, speaking of the portal, North Carolina's #1 receiver just entered the portal right after it was reported that Bill got the job. And maybe he just wants more money. Maybe that's a way to build his own market. That's what the game is right now. And again, I think he can make this work. But that's the point here is like he can walk in and stiff arm or strong arm or negotiate with. Let's be kind. Negotiate with Chancellor Roberts and Bubba Cunningham, the AD, and the board of trustees, because they're of similar age range. They've seen the development and the rise to greatness that's unparalleled in arguably American professional sports. Okay, that's where he's at. But it's different when kids today show me my money, and that's cool that you won rings all that time ago. But what I know about the New England Patriots, what guys coming to the Patriots now know about them is like, oh, Tom Brady used to play here.
Right. I mean, I think the example to be used with like people around our age would be like Don Shula. Like when I was in high school, like would I have cared that much about Don Shula recruiting me? I mean, I knew the name obviously, and I knew what he had done, but it wasn't like he was still thought of as this like I don't know. It's just
or Jimmy Johnson, right?
Right.
Like, goes to Miami, wins the national championship. Cowboys, let's say instead of going to the Dolphins, he went to Miami. Like, and there's some local equity built up there, but you're still like, so when was the last national championship you won? No.
Right. No, 100%. So I don't know. And it all depends on obviously what staff he puts around him too. I wasn't that encouraged, I would say, by you mentioned earlier, the Mike Lombardi hire as a GM, because quite frankly, I don't really know what a college GM does in the grand scheme of things, but that's a job that Mike Lombardi hasn't had before. Mike Lombardi hasn't even worked in the NFL since 2016 when he was an assistant to the coaching staff of the Patriots, hasn't been a GM in the NFL since 2013. Bill obviously thinks extremely highly of Michael Lombardi, but that's not necessarily the case otherwise around the league. Otherwise, I think he probably would have had a consistent job over the last few years. But I mean, if he brings Steve Belichick in as his defensive coordinator, I would have a lot of faith in the defense. But then where does that leave a potential Matt Patricia hire? Because I think we have a pretty good idea that Matt Patricia is going to be on this staff. He was doing all of his media gigs with him. He was receiving emails on the Manning cast from him and everything like that. So is he then like a defensive assistant? Is he the offensive coordinator? Like what happens there with that? I don't know. It's just, I really do want to know who the offensive coordinator is. Freddie Kitchens, probably not a bad first hire there. But are you keeping him as a tight ends coach, or are you keeping him as an offensive coordinator? It's going to be fascinating to see how he fills out that staff. And it's even possible that the Patriots could lose some coaches through all of this, because Brian Belichick, obviously Patriots safeties coach, he very well could go there. Mike Pellegrino came up with Bill Belichick. Who knows what happens there with him? Even let's say like Evan Rothstein, who's got a pretty important job right now with the Patriots as an assistant quarterbacks coach and the director of game management. He came in through Patricia. I don't know necessarily, obviously like him and Gerard have to be very tight since Gerard's on the headset with him every Sunday.
We're calling him on Thanksgiving. Like, hey, this is the one day you get off, but I'm going to bug you about work stuff because the Bears just blew it. And what would we do besides not blow it in the same way?
But like for Rothstein, like, does he want to stay with Mayo with like some uncertainty there with the Patriots moving forward, or does he want to hitch his wagons back to Bill? It's a tough choice for some of these guys, honestly.
And you could even go down the list, like Taekwon Underwood, guy who's got a college background. Wouldn't be surprised if he had gotten calls lately. Hey, do you want to come back? I mean, these colleges, depending on the NIL fund and the backing and the boosters and all this, which is another factor that Bill's going to have to wine and dine in a way that he did not in the NFL, even with his own boss, is a factor. But the staff one is a big part because you go to the early dynasty years, it was as much Belichick and Brady powering things as Romeo Crennel as your defensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. Like Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels was getting him coffee. Brian Dable was a grunt in the stable developing there. Oh, and Dante Scarnecchia, maybe the best offensive line coach ever, was here for the entirety of the run. So you are only as good as a head coach as the staff you build around you. I have confidence he'll pull smart people, certainly hardworking people. That's what Bill's done. Yeah. But we know also that the kind of fall of the dynasty late was not only Brady leaving and the talent getting worse, but you had guys like Vinny Cincinnati and Ross Douglas, guys who played defense in college, in charge of entire position groups on offense. Yeah. The last one I want to make is this, and then we'll finally pivot to the Pats. This has been mentioned in multiple stories. Really great stories. Seth Wickersham, Albert Breer, a couple of other reporters that have details you and I don't, that are perpetually producing great, unique reporting that is to be respected, is to be trusted. The one thing I can't get my head around from sources that they've spoken to is that Bill not only looked at the landscape and said, I probably won't get these jobs, but said the NFL is so stupid now, I'm too good for it. I'm sorry. That is a rationalization. That is, I quit. You can't fire me. That is, I'm breaking up with someone who's out of my league, who is having second thoughts, but I'm going to beat you to the punch. If Bill had an interview, he had an interview 11 months ago with the Falcons.
Right.
Didn't get it. Okay.
If he
also got an NFL job, he would have waited.
I might be wrong. And once again, like you said, great reporting. Seth Wickersham's story was great. I didn't necessarily understand why he thought the NFL had become so stupid. If it was because teams aren't willing to give a coach that much power anymore, if it was simply just that like teams don't want Bill Belichick anymore. Like, I don't really know what's changed about the NFL so dramatically over the last, let's say like 24 years. I would say college football has changed much more dramatically over the last 24 years. And I could understand a college coach saying like, I don't want to deal with college anymore, much more than an NFL coach being like, no, I don't want to deal with the NFL anymore, because I don't know. I mean, even let's say like the last 10 years, what's really changed in the NFL? Not that much, right? Other than like international games. Like maybe I'm being dense right now, but it really doesn't feel like it's that dramatically different.
I think he's just put off by, and this was in the ESPN headline, which this is not lip service. Like Seth has been on this podcast.
Yeah.
You and I both know him. It's a quote from an anonymous source that suggests, oh, Bill was so turned off, he pivoted to college before the NFL turned away from him. Doesn't seem to be what happened. But the politics of going through the Atlanta interview, selling the most important guy who will be paying you, Arthur Blank. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to win. People underneath him turning things around. Ryan Poles running another head coaching search in Chicago with a guy above him, Kevin Warren, who was a Big Ten commissioner not that long ago and is kind of just like hanging around. Bill doesn't want to report to them. I get that, but they also aren't offering you the job. Otherwise, you would know that you could have it or would. But that's it. I'm fascinated. This is, I said last couple days ago, more fascinated by this story than anything adjacent to the Patriots in a long, long time. Probably dating back to since Bill's departure and what went on 11 months ago when that happened. But all right, are we ready to talk football?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. We're going to have to wait. Because first, I need to remind the good folks that if you want to go to a game, and this could be football, it could be basketball, it could be a concert. Doug goes to a lot of shows. I would be going to Carolina, UConn. You could probably see Bill Belichick there. The Fenway Bowl. Wasabi Fenway Bowl, 11 a.m. kick. Wherever you want to go to Game Time first. Because all of these games, shows, concerts, etc., you will find the lowest price at Game Time. And Game Time has been good to us. They will be good to you. I have used this. I've told you to go to multiple games. Christmas is coming up. I will be going to Game Time for this lowest price guarantee to get gifts. And you should too, because you can also find seat views. Wherever you want to be in the stadium or in the concert hall, wherever it is, you can see exactly what you'll be looking at before you get there or even before you buy the tickets. And if for whatever reason you find a lower price elsewhere, they'll give you 110% of the difference. It's really simple, folks. Plus, Game Time picks, all-in pricing, right up front, the best deals. You don't have to search. You can do this in less than 60 seconds. Tickets to whatever game or show or concert you want to go to. So download the Game Time app today, okay? Create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create a Game Time account today before the holidays are over and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Okay. Patriots have 4 games left. My first column this week was they seem to know the stakes of what is here over the final stretch at Arizona, at Buffalo, home versus the Chargers, home versus Buffalo again. What do you see as the stakes of the Patriots stretch as they sit at 3-10 and try to do better than that before the season's over?
I mean, the number one thing at stake for me is that they just need to see what they have in these young players. And it's tough because in this game on Sunday, you're probably going to be without 2 rookies, Javon Baker dealing with a concussion. Kane Wallace doesn't seem like he's going to be ready yet from the ankle injury, coming off injured reserve. So I think what's at stake is like, how many wide receivers do we need this offseason? How many offensive linemen do we need this offseason? How many cornerbacks do we need this offseason? Because I was asking Gerard Mayo about Alex Austin and Isaiah Bolden today. Like, it seems like they are pretty committed to playing these young guys, seeing what they have in them. And that's tough because I also think that being competitive in these games and potentially winning one of these games would also be important. But that's what they have to weigh right now is like, all right, how much do we want to win? How much do we want to put the best lineup out there? Or how much do we want to see what we have in these guys? And that might be kind of like a front office versus coaching staff heads butting there right now. But I think that that's one of the main things that's at stake for me is just that you have to see what you have. And like Jalen Polk is the number one thing because that was your second round pick. He's got 12 catches for 87 yards this season. Historically bad year so far. We all saw in training camp that he looked like he could be an NFL wide receiver. Hasn't gone well. Alex Van Pelt was still talking about some mental issues with him, dealing with the drops early in the season. You would hope that maybe coming off the bye week, giving him a little bit of a rest, maybe this is finally the time for him to break out. I'm not convinced, but I don't know. That's the most important thing for me over the next 4 weeks.
One thing on Polk before I forget, because this is a type of anecdotal evidence and some people love to buy into this, and this illustrates everything you need to know, this silent scene that I'm about to describe. But I'm curious, I don't know how you're going to answer this. every time I see Jalen Polk in the locker room, aside from when he's very gracious, you don't have to do interviews with us if you don't want to. You got to do it one day a week, but he usually accepts. He's got his headphones on. He's sitting by himself. He's walking through the locker room alone often. And we don't get a complete representative look of how he walks about the building. But in the snapshots that we do get, they're very consistent. And I'm worried about a guy who's removed from not just the guys next to him in the locker, but the offense, what he's doing as a whole. Like, do you make anything of that?
Yeah, a little bit. Because I make something of the opposite. Like you see, like I'll use like Del Pettis as an example, and like Del Pettis, like he's an undrafted rookie, whatever. Like I know that a lot of people, he's not as important right now to the roster as Jalen Polk, but like Del Pettis is always giving someone crap in the locker room. Like he's always like kind of poking at guys. He's always talking to someone. He's always like kind of stirring things up. It's like it seems like a lot of the time it's with Marcellus Dial. I think that's like his best friend on the team, but he's like
Marte Mapu in there as well, and all very playful.
Yeah,
like he's
and
not.
oh yeah, no, 100%. But he's like making fun of them for being like the other day he was like making fun of someone's age, even though like the guy's only like a year older than him. It's like he's a guy that would have fit in the locker room with, let's say, like Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung and Deron Harmon and Logan Ryan, all these guys. And it seems like he's got a good rapport with guys. He's loose. He's having fun. I think he 100% takes his job very seriously on Sundays, but like during the week, he's having a good time. And you don't necessarily see that with everyone in the locker room. And I would say that Jalen Polk is one of those guys that you don't necessarily see him like chopping up with guys. I know that he is close with like Javon Baker. He says he's close with a lot of the rookies, but that's not necessarily something that you see outwardly in the locker room with Jalen Polk.
Yeah, and that goes for both ways. Like Baker, also a little bit more isolated. And this is, not to say anything more than what's happening. We're not drawing a causation to like, oh, better play if you just talk to your teammates more. But like we've all been in workplaces, like offices where you have to share. And generally, if you're having a better time, you're probably working a little bit harder or being more efficient or productive or whatever it might be. So it's just something I wanted to bring up. I think Polk, if he even flashes, that's enough to say, okay, we can have some hope moving forward. Because as you've documented very, 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 very well, it is a historically bad season for someone who, frankly, you brought up training camp. It just occurred to me that might have been the best he's looked all year. And those are padded practices, but it's against a decent secondary. And in games, he's just been a disaster. I am less of the belief that you can kind of learn something new, say for maybe Caden Wallace and Cole Strange. Caden Wallace doesn't sound like he's going to play Sunday, though he's been had his window open from IR. Cole Strange is now on the active roster because just more than 75% of the hay is in the barn. The thing to me is what Dietrich Wise, who like love the guy, genuinely, gentle giant, said something interesting finally behind a podium on Wednesday when I asked him, like, what are the stakes of the season? He said, quote, if we finish strong, we're telling everybody that the hard work we put in, it matters.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is what?
That the hard work that they put in doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Like, what are we doing this for? Like the culture, the players, the staff, the structure, everything is just clearly not working. That's the message to even guys like him. And Hunter Henry backed this up in a more specific way, saying if we win, it's a confidence boost for young players to say, hey, there's a reason you come in this early. There's a reason you watch the extra film. There's a reason after all the drops and mental struggles, Jalen Polk, that you keep pushing. And I'm not saying he's quit, but just as an example. And I buy into that because 6 years ago, you remember, end of the 2018 season, the Bills finished 4-3 with this dude at quarterback who's firing passes into the third row at a frozen Gillette Stadium in week then 16. Okay, Patriots win by 12, but the Bills pushed them in a real way en route to going 6-10. Then they destroyed Miami by 25 in the finale and finish 4-3 over the end of that season. The next year, they push the Patriots again. Brady holds them off one last time. At home, Saturday night game, Pats clinch the division. They go to the wild card, Buffalo does. But in 2020, the Pats passed the baton, and they've run with it since the Bills have. And I think that finish at the end of Sean McDermott's second season, clearly rebuilding rookie quarterback, had a material impact on who the Bills are now. I'm not saying the Patriots can do that and have the same results 2 years from now, but when you listen to Wise and Hunter Henry be honest of like, these young guys need confidence. We need a reason for all the hard work we're putting in to be provided. A win does that. Those are the stakes to me at the end of the season.
I mean, I also think it's tough because obviously there's a lot of chatter on Twitter and everything about like,
no,
Patriots fans want Gerard Mayo fired. They want Elliott Wolf fired. They want everyone gone. They want to clear house every year until they finish 17-0. And I'd say that in jest, but like, I don't think the answer is to fire everyone after a year, but I do think that I think Mayo's safe. In my opinion, I think it would just be it'd be such a hit for Robert Kraft to fire Gerard Mayo after a year. That I can't see it happening unless this is just like an outright disaster over the last 4 games. But like there is at least something there for, let's say, Gerard Mayo, or let's say some of the other coaches on the staff, that like, all right, we got to get our act together. Like this can't be a disaster. We've got to be competitive. We'd like to win a few games here, obviously, but like, I do think that they have to worry a little bit, maybe even if it's not this offseason, but like mid-season next year, if they finish this season 3-14, and then you compound that with, like, let's say they start next season off slow as well, it's just going to look worse. So I do think that even if jobs aren't at stake this offseason, which I think there could be for some assistant coaches,
Definitely.
but jobs are part of this, I would say, at least,
Yeah. All right, let's make this simple, because I raised the point that I think all of the Mayo discussion, where this is a classic case of there's reason to discuss, could Gerard Mayo be coaching for his job? And then you even ask people like, Greg Bedard, who I think have written about that notion or done some fresh reporting this week that suggests that could be the possibility. And his answer of what's the likelihood of Gerard Mayo coming back is 85%. And what you just said about it has to be a complete disaster is the same thing I've said. It's the same thing Tom Curran said, and we know how well Tom is plugged in, certainly with ownership. So let's move on. And the reason I think you could almost take this to 100, and tell me if I'm wrong, if they just win one freaking game,
right?
Like if you win Sunday, you match last year's record, you have a worse head coach. You could talk about the quality of the staff, the roster, whatever, certainly better quarterback play. But all of this dissipates. It doesn't mean it's still not disappointing, because it's gone away, but the noise just quiets. So what is your level of confidence, whether it's Sunday or the Chargers, one of the Bills games, that they actually do win a game before the end of the season?
Relatively low. And it's just because this team has fooled me too many times. No, not 85%, more in the 15% range, I would say. Just because, like, I mean, I want them to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Because for so many times they've shown some promise throughout the year, and I've been like, maybe they could win this one, and then they just lay an egg. And coming off that game against the Colts, I have very little confidence. Does seem like guys are relatively locked in this week, which I think is good. I think that there is a fear with 4 games left. You're out of the playoff hunt. You just had a bye week. Like, it's very easy to just mail it in for the rest of the season there. Cause like you've already felt how good it feels to be off. So then I think you're just like, oh man, I can't wait for that in 4 weeks. But it doesn't necessarily feel like that's happening around the team right now. Maybe they prove me wrong, but still, I think the schedule is just too tough. Like, you've got the Cardinals who are competitive. The Chargers are a playoff contender. The Bills are one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. And like, maybe if the Bills, lock things up and throw Mitchell Trubisky out there in week 18, then like, yeah, maybe you win that game. But in the grand scheme of things, that looks good on paper, and at least you match the win total from last year, but it obviously doesn't mean as much to beat a team that's just planning for the playoffs than it would against an actual competitive roster.
So let me put it like this. I am aligned with you in that I am less confident they will win a game down the stretch. And I want them to prove you wrong. But I actually want them to embarrass you. I would love 2 wins. Is that too much to ask? Like, it's like, yes.
Does that include a Mitchell Trubisky start?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I think they're 2 games back of the Chiefs. Yeah, they have the tiebreaker, and the Chiefs have a tough schedule. But like, if we're being realistic, there's only one bye now. You're not chasing anything if you're out of the 1 seed race, which maybe they catch up. But anyway, I want them to embarrass you. I want them to embarrass me. I would love to be wrong. Let's spice things up. Other than, oh hey, Drake May played well, and like the defense isn't that good, and it was kind of close aside from the Miami game. Like, I'm done with that. I want something new. You're refreshed. This Arizona team is beatable, and we'll get to them in a second.
They are, yeah.
So let's nail us both down. Prediction: will the Patriots win another game this season?
I say no.
Well, if they're going to embarrass me too, I have to say no. I'm just going to embarrass myself. That's a lot easier. I don't need to ask anyone else to do this. I can wear a stained sweatshirt on my own. I will say yes. Whether it is this Sunday, we'll find out at the end of this episode, or at the end of the season, is another discussion. I just, even if Drake does the whole damn thing and plays safety, and he pulls a Travis Hunter and he's playing both sides of the ball, it just has to happen. I need one. Let's simplify. Let's declutter the noise and just enjoy life a little bit more if the Patriots surprise all of us. Which, look, all 3 of their wins were surprises. They were more than 6-point underdogs in all of those games. Will it happen again? We'll see. Okay, let's move on.
How many guys on the roster are faster than Drake May?
Wow, that is a great question. Also sounds like good trivia for this segment I do on Tuesdays.
We don't have a 40 time for Drake May. We like only just see him play on the field, but his speed always surprises me.
Well, all of the DBs, all of the receivers.
Kendrick Bourne thinks that May might be faster than him. He said that like back in like week 6.
Yeah, but I think, didn't he say something about like it was my prime or not? You know?
Yeah, like I think he did say before. That he did say that he thinks he's gotten faster, but I don't know. He's coming off a torn ACL. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
So there's only 5 receivers on the roster right now. You talk about the DBs, you're looking at like 10, 11 guys. Yeah. So 15, 16. He's faster than more than half the roster.
Yeah. Maybe you throw Gibson in there. Maybe Hasty.
The backs. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, above average.
He's up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw him in at safety.
Okay.
Throw him in at cornerback. Yeah. He's a better size matchup for Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson than some of the other Patriots cornerbacks.
Also a fireable offense for Gerard Mayo, if that didn't need to be said already.
I'm for it.
He's also one of our taller guys. Like Kyler Murray's throwing a Hail Mary. Let's get him in the end zone out there. And then, why is he down clutching his knee? Oh, there goes everyone's jobs all at once. Okay, speaking of Drake May, though, here's the thing. I've told people whether the Patriots win or lose, you can win all season long with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's an app I play. And Doug has taken a look at least I know for sure, Prize Picks, okay? You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and this gets better as we get closer to the holidays because welcome, folks, to Pickmas, okay? You can win up to 200 times your cash going into the holidays. All you have to do is pick more or less as you build a lineup of players from 2 to 6. So it could be Drake May and Hunter Henry and Pop Douglas, and then pick one player, any player from another team. Boom. There's your 4-player lineup. And you know what? If you can't decide another player, here it is. Patrick Mahomes this weekend, his more or less figure is half a passing yard. Folks, I'm going to tell you right now, just hit more. Boom. There's one square in your lineup. And if you pick another pick correctly, and we're going to give you 2 at the end of the segment, say Drake May more than half a touchdown pass, you just won. Thanks to Drake May and Patrick Mahomes, but only on Prize Picks, where again, you can win up to 200 times your money. And they are giving free picks away in December. So even if you don't get Patrick Mahomes this weekend, come back later where they're giving more than $30 million away in rewards during Pickmas. Isn't that fun to say? Pickmas. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. It's a $50 bonus, 50, guaranteed whether you win or lose. Download the app today. Use code CLNS for that lineup, $50 for that bonus, $50 bonus instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get that $50 bonus instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, that was no accident bringing up Drake May. I do believe he will have more than half a touchdown pass in Arizona. He's done it in most, if not all, of his games so far. I believe also Demario Douglas will have more than 3.5 receptions. Arizona, bottom 10 in the league at defending the short middle of the field by DVOA. Very good against tight ends, but if they've got Hunter Henry blanketed, that leaves space for Demario Douglas, their second leading receiver, to eat. Last one, Patrick Mahomes, more than. He's going to have more than 1.5 feet of passing yards, okay? So there it is. Drake May, more than half a touchdown pass. Demario Douglas, more than 3.5 receptions. Patrick Mahomes, more than half a passing touchdown. If you think that's reasonable, download the Prize Picks app today. Play, win, celebrate. We love Pickmas. Okay. Pats Cardinals. Patriots are 3-10. They are the worst team in the league still, even after the bye. Just getting kicked while they're down by DVOA. If you don't like that, don't yell at me. Yell at Aaron Schatz. They are 30th on offense, 31st on defense, 14th on special teams. The Cardinals, 6-7 overall, losers to 3 straight. They, though, are 10th in offense, 14th in defense, 20th in special teams. Here are their last 4. Last weekend, a 30-18 loss versus Seattle. Week before, 23-22, kicking the nuts at Minnesota. That's a loss. 16-6 loss at Seattle. Before that, the bye. And then the big win that fools everyone. It's always a mirage. 31-6 win at home versus the Jets. Just when you think you're home cooking, it turns out it's actually takeout, and it's the Jets, and then you have to cook for yourself, and everything burns because you don't really have food that you made for yourself. Let's just run this down. 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought. I asked for 2 matchups when you look at the Patriots versus the Cardinals. What's the first one you're looking at for who wins this game?
I mean, the most intriguing one is definitely Christian Gonzalez versus Marvin Harrison Jr. It seems pretty obvious that we'll see Christian Gonzalez on Marvin Harrison Jr. You might have said the same thing about the Rams against Puka Nacua. That obviously didn't work out. But no, I wouldn't expect Gonzalez to be playing in the boundary in this game. And I think that obviously the Cardinals have some other receiving threats as well. I mentioned Michael Wilson earlier. Trey McBride is certainly a problem on that Cardinals roster as well. And if you can limit Marvin Harrison Jr. In this game, then I think that you could do a pretty good job of limiting Kyler Murray as well. And I mean, Christian Gonzalez, I put it out there recently, since week 10, which is 4 games for Christian Gonzalez, 5 games overall, something like that. He is PFF's top graded cornerback. So early in the season, everyone was freaking out. Christian Gonzalez's PFF grade was way down. He was in the 60s or whatever it was. You had Tony Maserati tweeting about it. Guess what? It's bounced back. He's been phenomenal over his last 4 games, let's say, and really for most of the season. But over those last 4 games, he's only allowed 74 yards. I don't know if he's going to lock down Marvin Harrison Jr. to that extent. But he seems to be playing with a lot of confidence right now. He's getting his hand on the ball. He's their number 1 threat right now to turn the ball over and get a takeaway. So that's the number 1 matchup that I'm looking at.
So Marvin Harrison Jr., not the Cardinals' leading receiver, because Trey McBride is inhaling more than 80 passes for almost 900 yards already. Like, this is a rare tight end who's going to lead everybody in everything and do so impressively, not like the Hunter Henry default. All due respect to the guy who's been on the show, but like, Patriots would probably be in a better position if Pop Douglas or pick a receiver was ahead of Hunter Henry. They're not.
For sure.
Trey McBride is ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. in catches and receptions, but he's behind, like everyone else is, in touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr.
he doesn't have a touchdown this year, right?
Does not yet. He's behind literally anyone who's stepped foot in the end zone. Trey McBride is. But 7 touchdowns. So even if the Patriots don't commit, and we're going, why isn't Christian Gonzalez and Marvin Harrison Jr. on 3rd down? As soon as the Cardinals, forget the 20, get on the outskirts of the red zone, get to the 25 or in, he should be on Marvin Harrison Jr. from a size standpoint, the way that he's scoring, how critical that area and those downs are. You're absolutely right. I think that's a battleground that could swing this war more than any others. Do you have any offensive matchups? I know you got one more, but I have a couple backups just in case.
No, I actually don't have a Patriots
offense versus Cardinals defense.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you one then. Budda Baker versus hopefully not fellow safety Drake May. And this is easy just because obviously the quarterback, oh my God, if he plays well, then they play well. True. Budda Baker is a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's a 2-time All-Pro. Doesn't have a pick this year, but he's got a couple of sacks. He's used all over this defense, which for having a lack of talent has this genius idea of maybe we should spin the dial a little bit. And he's going to read Drake's eyes. He's going to be in different places. And Mayo mentioned him. Drake just needs to be a little bit more careful around him, not even just throwing deep in protections, because if he's got a handle on Budda Baker, I just don't look at many game wreckers on that Cardinal defense to really affect him, to really pressure him. I mean, no one on that team has 5 or more sacks. They're not getting a whole lot of interceptions. They do punch the ball out pretty well, but that starts with Budda Baker, the tone setter, guy who's going to be moved around like a chess piece. If Drake can avoid trouble with him, you can hit on other weak spots in that defense.
Yeah, Budda Baker's having a great season. UW guy. He's definitely one, the most dangerous player on that team, and you do have to pay attention to where he is. He can cause problems for Drake May, and I've been obviously really impressed with Drake May overall. Guy who really just doesn't make that many mistakes. So I don't know. Obviously, he's had some turnover issues, but I have confidence that Drake May can play well in this game and that he can potentially win that matchup. Doesn't necessarily mean that the Patriots can win because their defense has been so bad. But my next matchup is one that we might not see very often in this game, but it is Kyler Murray versus Brendan Schooler. I think this is another Longhorn package
I like
game
it.
where Kyler Murray, fourth right now among quarterbacks in rushing yards. He's got 444 rushing yards on the season. Obviously a smaller guy, but like Kyler Murray really has pretty special agility when you watch him. Like he genuinely has like the agility of like a Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type, but he's a quarterback. Like some of the moves that he can make back there are really special. So obviously it would only be on third down. Only in, situations where Kyler Murray is going to drop back, not see anything, potentially run for like a 10, 15-yard gain, whatever it is, pick up a first down. But Brendan Schooler has been really good in that role on defense this year. It's been a limited sample size, and there's only so many times the Patriots can use it during the season because they really haven't faced that many athletic scrambling quarterbacks. But this is a good time to use it. And with Jabril Peppers back in the lineup, might see Marte Mapu down again this week. Jalen Hawkins missed some time with an illness this week. Marcus Jones did as well. Like there's some issues there in the secondary where you don't feel that bad having to thrust Brendan Schooler back into that spiral on third down.
Yeah. Can we find out more about him? Like if this is a fact-finding mission down the stretch of the season, he's balled out at safety. Granted, you could count the number of snaps he's played on two hands. But
where does he have like 2 or 3 sacks already?
And another pressure.
Yeah.
And he's great in that spiral. He can roll down from depth, and they've done that before. Jonathan Jones and Lamar Jackson, but like Schooler's bigger, he's faster. He's the quickness start and stop is not Kyler Murray-esque, but he's physical as hell.
Yeah, for
sure. It's like a little fun wrinkle. One that's not as fun, but I think will be equally as critical because we can't go talking about the Cardinals any longer without mentioning James Conner, 29-year-old, 233-pound running back. Remember him at a Pitt, overcame cancer. He's only had 1,000-yard season in his NFL career. Going at 8 years.
I was going to bring that up too. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, he's going to have 2 because he's about at 900 yards. And the key for the Cardinals, which I always push back against, like, oh, you run the ball to win. Like the correlation between running and winning is so strong. Yeah, because you get ahead and then you kill the clock. It's not the inverse. But in this case, it just might be because we know how terrible the Patriots' run defense is. So they're very multiple, not only just because of Kyler Murray as a threat to run, but also in their schemes, run a lot of different versions of counter. They'll do some zone stuff. And so James Conner, though, is just the battering ram in the backfield. And I need, if you're the Patriots, you're speaking like this, Devon Godchow to show up in the middle in a way that's not like, well, I did my job, even though Anthony Richardson went right by me for the game-winning 2-point conversion. Like, you need to do your job. You need to be one of the best defenders in the field against his interior O-line, because there are ways to finagle some of those option reads on the edge or perimeter blitzes or Schooler. Okay, but if you were just getting pounded in the middle of your defense, there's no real solution for that. So I think him versus the Cardinals interior O-line is a matchup that not a ton of fun to talk about, but is going to be vital to this game.
Definitely. And just one more thing to throw in at the end here is that I am curious to see what the Patriots secondary looks like in this game, because I don't know how often Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones can share the field at cornerback in this game. I think that one of those guys has a good matchup against Greg Dortch, but I mentioned him a couple times already. Like Michael Wilson's a guy who has had some big games this year. He's a 6'2", 220-pound wide receiver. Like, you started to mix in Alex Austin and Isaiah Bolden last week. I think this is probably another week, and Gerard may have even said today that like those guys are probably going to be in a rotation as well. Michael Wilson spends majority of his snaps outside. So I think that you're going to need one of those bigger cornerbacks outside in this game. You'll probably see Marcus Jones in the slot. So if Jonathan Jones plays, probably either going to be on a rotation basis or back there at free safety again in this game.
Yeah. All right, let's get to 2 keys. Or we could do 1 key since we did like 7 matchups. Mine is simple, and it's not, as central to the outcome of this game as we just talked about, Devon Godchow and James Conner. And can I get a wrinkle or two? Can I get a surprise, a fake punt, or even just Drake May on a quarterback run, which the folks at CLNS who run and host this podcast got a clip of him drilling zone read in practice on Thursday. To me, he's not doing that if they're not finally going to introduce him to the design quarterback run game. And I haven't had strong feelings about this. I think they should get to it at some point. Now is the time. You need to have something new for Arizona. You've had the bye. You're rested. All this time to think and practice and drill. Show it. Get an edge from something that's going to catch them off guard and give you a meaningful advantage on Sunday on offense, on special teams, or hell, even on defense.
Jacoby Brissett coming in for a fake QB sneak isn't good enough for you?
I love that.
For him, doesn't push the needle. I do
fake
too.
Quarterback sneak specialist. Yeah.
And I actually do think that Alex Van Pelt, hasn't been overly creative, but he's thrown in some wrinkles. So I think that we might actually see that over the final 4 weeks, and that could kind of push them over the edge where, you just need a big play in this game. And some of those big plays have been the deciding factor in Patriots losses. They haven't had a lot of big plays to win games, but that certainly would help in this matchup. Certainly mine is that, and I wrote a story about it this week, and some of it is just coach and player speak or whatever. But I do genuinely think that the Patriots feel like their defense is playing poorly because guys are not playing together. Guys are not on the same page. And
yeah, they've told us
some of it is excuses. Some of it is them saying there's been a lot of turnover, a lot of young guys mixing in. And yeah, those are excuses, but for them, at times this season, it really has been true. Once Jerron Bentley came down, then you have to throw in Raekwon McMillan. He's not very good. So then you have to put in Christian Ellis. They've had Jaquelin Roy, Eric Johnson coming in at defensive tackle. They've had a lot of moving pieces at safety. Kyle Duggar dealing with the ankle injury, Jabril Peppers being on the commissioner's exempt list. So there is some truth to that. But it's not true anymore moving forward. And obviously some things could happen in this game, but they've got Christian Barmore back. They've got Jabril Peppers back at safety. The linebackers have been the linebackers for weeks now. The defensive linemen are the defensive linemen. It's a pretty solid set of guys who have been in this defense all year. You've got Barmore back. You've got Jabril Peppers back. These final 4 games are now where you have to start playing on the same page. And you can't have guys like Kyle Duggar having communication issues because he's one of your highest paid players. And he's been playing in this defense for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is at this point. Those are the things that can't happen now at this point. So I really do think that the only way for this defense to play well and to be a strength and to allow this team to win games is for them to start playing together, is for them to stop having those communication issues. And like I said, there's really not an excuse anymore because they have all these guys back. And I mean, the one thing I will say is that with Christian Barmore, you just don't know where he's at. It's easy to say you've got Christian Barmore back in the defense. You should be at full strength. And I actually asked Gerard Mayo about this today. I said, when Barmore came back, the expectation was that there was no expectation. And that's totally fair. He's coming back from blood clots. You rushed him back on the field after one practice. There for the first few weeks of his return, he wasn't even able to practice in consecutive days as he was weaning off blood thinners. There were a lot of reasons why he might not have been the Christian Barmore that you were expecting. So I asked Gerard Mayo, when now are there expectations for Christian Barmore? And quite honestly, he didn't give me a very good answer. He kind of did a roundabout way of saying, it's really frustrating when you expect guys to just be themselves coming off an injury, whatever it is. So it might just be the case for the rest of the season. The Patriots don't really fully expect Christian Barmore to be Christian Barmore, but he's out there for 30, 40 snaps a game. You can't just have him filling space in there. So if he can be himself, that would be big. Even if he can't, you've got enough pieces on that defense that they should be much better than they are right now.
I agree. That is all well said. What came to mind was not anything really tangential to the game on Sunday. It was DeMarcus Covington speaking to us the week before that Christian Barmore came back, the week he started to practice, and he was just out there in the field, and it wasn't padded. He was a limited participant. I'm like, no way. He has not been in pads for 9 months. He's not going to play. Lo and behold, he played on Sunday. And what reinforced that belief, that confidence I have, which was completely misplaced, was DeMarcus Covington telling us, this is the story. Anything up from here, there are no expectations. It's gravy. It's just a blessing. He's on the field. That's it. There's no pressure. There's no nothing. This is your story. He's on the field. That's all. If he doesn't play a game, it's still a success. I'm like, okay, this is a little heavy-handed and patronizing, but sure. Yeah, obviously the guy had a life-threatening sickness.
Yeah.
But then he plays. Like, which
Right.
which is it? Like, and I think it
I
speaks
know.
to their depth, their desperation, the fact, put the contract even aside. He's
Right.
24, 25 years old. He's really good. He needs to be on the field if he can, if
Yeah.
he's cleared. Why not? That's what he's paid to do. That's what he wants to do.
And
But it was
and like
just such a
full
hard
disclosure, like
pivot.
I was truly asking that because like I want to know how fair to be with Christian Barmore.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that I would err on the side of caution with it and be like, it's good he's out there doing what he can do, whatever. But like the truth is that he hasn't been what he was last year up to this
Mhm.
point. And I think that there's like I'm not criticizing him. I'm not like I think there's reasons for that. But if we're just being honest about it, he has not been a dominant force in the middle of the defense. And I'm curious to see if he can regain that over the last 4 weeks.
And I think that's a really, really important note because I think that often gets lost, especially by people who take words that you or I write or we say or reports or look at the play. Like the interest in certain pockets of the media is not to be fair, but that's our starting point. It's like, how do I do
Yeah.
this most accurately and be fair
Yeah.
to the people involved, even in cases of like litigation? I had a chat
Right.
with like, people close to Jabril Peppers, him directly, being like, look, I need to ask you certain stuff to be fair about this, to be right, to be honest about it. If you can't answer, okay, but like I'm going to be blunt about this. Like, how do you be fair? What are the things I
Right.
need to know in order to be fair and have a well-rounded look? So it's a word I think gets skipped over. Is if we're going to be fair to Alex Van Pelt, for example, for coaching and their 30th in DVOA, and that sucks. Okay,
Right.
well, what was the roster talent that he have? Okay,
Yeah.
if we want to be fair about Drake May, well then the guy's thrown a couple of picks that have closed games. Those are rookie mistakes. Also
Right.
things you can't have in the long term. So it's always a balance. Wild card thought. Let's get out on this. Anything close to the game related to it? Mine is not fully fleshed out. I'm gonna let you buy me some time here and just go ahead.
Well, I'm dropping things over here from my desk, but
Oh, good.
um, my I think I rely on this a little bit too much sometimes. But like for me, it's just returning to the site of Super Bowl 49, and
Yeah.
I think what at this point on the team and coaching staff and everything, like Gerard Mayo's the only guy left at this point, right? Outside of like ownership and maybe some front office guys.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are a couple front office guys who definitely were around back then. Um,
But I mean,
yeah.
but
Later.
just as like a media member, it's cool. Like that
Yeah.
grass has a certain tint and like it's cool to be back in that building. And that was obviously an extremely memorable Super Bowl. It was the first Super Bowl I ever covered. Clearly wasn't against the Cardinals, but it's cool to return back to that site and to see it again. I remember exactly, where I was in that stadium when Malcolm Butler had the interception. And I think that, it plays no factor in this game. It played no factor in the Patriots deciding not to take timeouts at the end of that Colts game. But it is just cool that there is that tie-in with this game, just like there was with the, Patriots Rams and all these other things. That I'm not one to usually like lean on the past like this, but for something like this, it will be cool to get back there.
I mean, look, they're 3-10.
Yeah.
Snort all of the championships and the dust from those memories
Yeah.
as you can to get by. And that goes for everyone involved. That was something I said in the Fans Guide to Watching a Rebuild is like, just suck on the nostalgia as long as you can. That's enough snorting and sucking for me. My thought is also about the stadium in a way that's like the Patriots last played in Arizona just 2 years ago. That
Yeah.
game is not best remembered for being 27-13 Patriots. You could even argue that Kyler Murray tearing his ACL in the first or second drive is not even the most memorable thing, though everyone in Arizona would. I would say it was Vance Joseph describing Matt Patricia's offensive play calling as a defensive guy calling plays, which was just hysterical, also
Yeah.
accurate. And as you
Yeah.
go back into that season, as I have to dig up some certain things and speak to certain people, like, we thought the offense last year was bad and it was atrocious, and this year has not been particularly good. That 2022 offense, man, at least like had some function to it. And so if
Yeah.
we're going to be fair to Matt Patricia, I think that's one that gets a little bit lost in the memory and the feeling of it because no offense has been better since. But that's not my wild card thought. This is meandering. It's just to say how much has changed since that game. Okay, forget
Yeah.
Matt Patricia, offensive coordinator, Mac Jones at quarterback, Bill Belichick as a head coach. They went and stayed at the University of Arizona the following week because they played at Las Vegas, a game only remembered for one thing, and that being the lateral Jacoby Myers to Chandler Jones, stiff arming Mac Jones into the earth en route to the touchdown and ending the Patriots season. Jed Fish was the head coach at Arizona. Jed Fish is now at Washington, where Steve Belichick is the defensive coordinator. And how much just in the last 2 years with the Patriots, Matt Judon had a big game. Josh Uche had like 3 sacks. Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong were both taking carries. It's a short amount of time and an insane amount of change. And that's true for a lot of games, but especially when it's almost 2 years to the day when this game will kick off and they last played in Arizona. So there you go.
A lot has changed. And like you said, Matthew Slater, Gerard Mayo was on injured reserve for that game. Dante Hightower, now a linebackers coach, was at linebacker. Obviously, Robert and Jonathan Kraft. And a few members of the front office, but I mean, most of the top front office guys have moved on. Nick Caserio, Monty Austin-Fort, Bob Quinn, Ernie Adams, Michael Lombardi. Monty Austin-Fort, actually now the Cardinals GM. So he'll be in the building, just not on the Patriots side. But a lot of turnover the last 10 years, and certainly a lot over the last 2 years as well, which is pretty surprising.
All right, let's close this out. Game pick. What do you got?
What's the line in this game? Do you know?
6.5.
6.5. Do you know what the point total is?
I don't.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 24-17 Cardinals in this one. I think the Patriots. I think they can get some offense going. I don't think that they're going to dominate this Cardinals defense. And I want the Patriots defense to prove it to me. I've told you all the reasons why the Patriots defense can be better, but until they actually do it on the field, I'm not convinced that it's going to happen.
Yeah. 27-19 Cardinals. I do think Patriots win a game. I think it will be week 18. The Bills sitting just about everybody, and they're at home. Drake May plays well against the defense we'll have seen for a second time. They're at home. They're on the road right now. Cardinals lose this game, like their season is over. Their playoff chances are not good to begin with, but I just think it's a more talented team. It's a better coach team. You got the better quarterback as well as Drake May has played, and 27-19 is the final. So there you go. All right. We will be back next week. I will have a solo film episode plus mailbag. We haven't done mailbag in a while. We will have the fellas, Nick Roy and Kevin Wallace, who raised $1,100 via Nick's tickets and Kevin buying them and donating to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Let's go.
On next week. So shout out to them again. I know I've been delaying, rescheduling, family stuff coming up. But in the meantime, he's Doug Kyed. He will be in Arizona. I will not. And anything you want to plug? Pat's Chat?
Yeah, listen to Pat's Chat. I do that with Michael Hurley. Usually every Sunday and Thursday. This week, Michael's going to a concert, so we're gonna have to do it on Monday. But yeah, tune into Pat's Chat.
What's he? Who's he seeing?
He's seeing Piebald. They're like a Massachusetts-based pop punk band, essentially. But I think they're one of Hurley's favorite bands. I like Piebald. I'm not gonna be there. What was that?
Would they let me on stage as I remove my cap just to reveal another bald head?
Yes, quite possibly. Yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely.
So we are back, refreshed from the bye week. We have another 4-minute drill. It's been a while, but we want to save a special guest, Yannick Ngakoue, coming to join us, new to New England. Just told him the drill. You know it. We're going to start the clock, alternate football and non-ball questions, and once the clock is out, so are we. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. The worst pronunciation I've heard of my own name sounded like blank.
Sounded like Yannick. That's the most common bad pronunciation of my name that I always hear, Yannick, when it's really pronounced Yannick, or you can call me Jan.
Okay. How about the last name?
Man, sometimes people they don't even try to pronounce it because they don't want to butcher it.
You have a middle name?
Yeah, Nicholas is simple name.
Oh, okay.
Very simple.
My favorite quarterback to sack in the entire NFL is who?
Every one of them, all 32. Minus our quarterback.
I was going to say 31.
31 other quarterbacks, definitely. There's no particular quarterback at all. I just like getting to the quarterback.
Okay. But even earlier in your career, I mean, you got to face Brady. You got to face a lot of guys who might be in the Hall of Fame one day. Pat Mahomes.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of great quarterbacks, man. I can't really name one, but speaking of Brady, I was able to get quarterback hits on him, never really got to sack him. So it kind of sucked that I didn't get that opportunity.
I was going to say, you sound a little sore about that.
Yeah, but he's one of the greats, so yeah, absolutely.
How romantic is Yannick?
I feel like I'm very romantic, you know what I mean? That's more of a significant other question. You got to ask my girl that question, but I'm pretty sure she'll say the same thing.
Okay, what's the best date you've taken her on? Give us an example of you being, quote, pretty romantic.
I would say surprise dinner, surprise shopping, and surprise trip somewhere. You know what I mean? And like I told you earlier, off the record, we have a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois, so he goes with us everywhere.
Okay, that's a dog, because I didn't know that breed. I didn't know what you were talking about, except for we had talked about a dog, so we'll get to the dog in a second. Going back to the field, what's the worst advice a coach at any level gave you? You just heard it, or like, this doesn't make sense, that's wrong, but I'm just going to keep my peace.
I really wouldn't say any advice. I feel like you can take any advice anyway. It could be good or bad advice. You just got to just really read through what you received and make a great decision from it.
Okay. What shows you watch right now?
What shows am I watching? Right now I'm studying a lot of film. But in the off season, that's a great question. What was I watching this past off season? I was watching a lot of BMF.
What's BMF?
You should Google it. It's on BET. It's a funny show.
You know, I had a feeling I wasn't going to be the one to say it. Like,
Sam wrote the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
all right, good. Is it what we most know BMF to stand for? Is that what it's getting at?
No, actually, I think it stands for Black Mafia Family or something like that. It's like a real story that 50 Cent did on a person's life. I think the person was incarcerated for doing certain things, but now he's out of jail. So
cool. That sounds interesting. Let's go back to ball. The number one misconception, you can either take this broad about defense or specific to pass rushing, is what? What's one thing we believe about defense or pass rushing on the outside that's just not true?
It's not as easy as it looks. It's an art. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, everything has to queue up and time up for you to be able to get to the quarterback. The right coverage, the right get off, the right pass rush move, and the quarterback holding the ball at the right time for you to get there.
Cool. 1 minute left. What's something that surprised you about living or playing in New England?
Nothing really surprised me. It's all about ball. I love it up here. I'm used to the cold weather. I'm a Maryland boy myself, so not too far away from here. So it feels like home, honestly.
All right, back to the dog. Tell us about your dog, how big, how much you love it. How did life change once you got this dog?
I love that dog forever, man. That's my guy. His name is 7, like the number. He's a Belgian Malinois, like I said. For everybody that's in the law enforcement or, military, you know exactly what breed that is because that breed goes on missions to help, secure our country as well. So that was one of the major reasons why I got him, and he's just high energy, fun dude to be with.
All right, we got 2 more. If you are dropped in the middle of the wilderness, nothing around you, how long do you survive? Are you resourceful? Are you a guy in touch with nature? What does that look like in the next few days?
I'm just praying, man. Just praying. That's all I'm going to do is pray.
So you're giving up right away, or you're putting it in someone else's hands?
No, praying is keeping that faith, you know what I mean? Okay. So I feel like if I pray and I keep that faith, I'll be able to get out that situation.
Okay, we're going back to football. Question we always end with. What's your least favorite media question?
My least favorite media question? It's a great question, man. Just questions after a loss. So it could be anything specific. What do you feel like you could have done better? What do you feel like the defense did this? It's annoying because you just lost, but at the end of the day, the media's doing their job, and we got to be professionals and, answer accordingly.
We'd love to hear that on our end, though we do screw up sometimes. Yannick Ngakoue, romantic, loves his dog. Been in the Hamptons sometimes. He loves it. Appreciate you, man.